And how it gets better is because companies like Pocstock are helping them with, training data and guidance. And I sit on boards and advisory groups to make sure these companies have, just an understanding that, hey, you need to think about us in a different way, than you've been thinking about. you know each culture is different, so you have to think about each culture in a different way if you want them to show up authentically in your product. So it's really been interesting to see them make those mistakes for 30 years in advertising and marketing and turn around and start doing the same exact thing in AI.
That's crazy.
Talk about history repeating itself.
Yeah, not on our watch though.
Period.
We
but
not
how,
on our watch. We're not doing that.
that's what I was gonna ask you before, because asked the question was like what initial investment did you have? You had the aha moment. What did it take to get off the ground? Because we have to learn, like you said, you have to learn the different cultures and things like that. That is costly. That's a lot of, learning different iterations of the business. Like, what did it start with? What was like one of the toughest times and stuff like that? Like, walk us through that, because we understand it.
Yeah, I mean, since it wasn't my first rodeo at launching a company, I knew how to put the scaffolding in place, which is like the empty boxes that you put in place that knowing one day you're going to need to fill it in. So we were self-funded. My partner Deshaun and I had two other co-founders at the time. One helped build the platform, the other helped seed the library with our first set of imagery. But yeah, we knew where we wanted to go. So we're not a small business; we're a startup, right? So it's a different approach to building a global venture, right? So you put the pieces in place, then you build them, and that's what we're doing. So it's one of those things that it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of people. We have over 200 investors. We have 3,000 creators across 65 countries. We have a team of about 30 people working all the time on this thing. It takes a village, but it takes a village. Pocstock would not be where we are if we did not have a group of people who really believe that this work is worthwhile. And no matter what's going on in the world right now, people still ride with us.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And like you said it before, like Stock is more than just like stock images. It's a movement. So how do you define that movement, and what does success look like beyond these downloads and the client rosters?
So impact, really. So when we look out and we see things changing, so let's say one day, unfortunately, another George Floyd happens, right? Let's say that something tragic like that were to happen. And if we see people look at that person who's the victim as a victim and not going through their history and saying what this is what they did as a teenager, and smearing them to make them less than human, to justify what happened to them. When we see things like that change, we know that the work has moved well beyond what our capabilities are and what our impact is, right? So one of the things we want to do is show people in a positive light. We're not trying to say one race or one group is better or worse. We're trying to say you can find beauty in everything and everyone. You can find positivity in everything and everyone. And we're just trying to amplify that, because for many years all the negativity is what shines through. And in the positive images of George Floyd holding his daughter, I was so happy to see those images surface and not some high school mugshot or something like that show up, right? So whenever we can be shown as our whole human self, and that seems like an odd thing to ask for, right? Like that's an odd thing to aspire to, but um, um, but that's really it. In media, it influences almost everything we think about. When we see something cool in a video, in a movie, if we think we know about, if you live in Brooklyn, you think you know anything about Compton, but you never been there. It's through the music, it's through the videos. Like the imagery influences how people think about us. Imagine the amount of and I'm never gonna put down gangster hip hop because I grew up on it, right? But imagine how much of that got flooded into the marketplace, and that's how the world thinks of all of us, not just a segment, but all of us, right? Imagine if someone flooded the world with positive imagery, black men with their kids, you know, black women CEOs, you know, Hispanic doctors and CEOs. And imagine if the world was flooded with all these imagery and people stop clutching their purses when they see you, because they're like, wow, I'm used to seeing Black people successful. Not just rappers with yachts and flashing nuts, but I'm talking true successful, like true images of everyday success. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if the world was filled with those images? How would that shape the world's perspective on us?
Well, I mean, real quick, we're not going to get into the political climate of things, but you already know that's never going to happen. Number one, because we don't own most of these major agencies that are in charge of or have the ability to put the imagery forward, put the message forward, whatever narrative they choose, they want to put out into, the news cycle. We don't control these, unfortunately, right? So that's why it's such an uphill battle for us to be able to get these images out there, because they understand something which is very inert to us coming to this country, right? Education is key. Education is key.
Yep.
That's why with the slaves, there was a lot of things that would get you beat, would get you whipped, but not a lot of things that would get you killed because you were property. That owner wanted to make their money worth from you. But learning how to read and write, you see, educating yourself, see, that would get you killed, because they understood that the more educated we are, the less that we're going to tolerate things that we know are wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it, like you said, just think about it. It would be common sense, right? If the world had a better perception of us, then they would treat us differently. If the world had better knowledge at our culture and our contributions to the world, then we would be treated differently. But that's why they are controlling the narrative the way they are. That's why they're trying to slowly erase our history and change, right? And change what's taught about us, because they know that the education is key. Dr. Matthew Knowles, it was Dr. Matthew Knowles, right, Cuzzo? The quote that we love. So I think Dr. Matthew Knowles said it when we had him on the show, when he was saying we have to be very careful that history doesn't become his story.
His story.
Is your microphone leaking? What is this sound?
I don't.
It sound like a tire leaking.
Is your microphone leaking, girl? You the
I'm
microphone.
gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you want my honest opinion, I think it's the world trying to stop our message from getting out in a clear form. Yeah. Man, how convenient that we're talking about what we're talking about and we're experiencing technical difficulties like that. And again, Steve, in 200 and something episodes, we never had that air come on like that as many times as it just did. So how could that be a coincidence? I'm just saying, like, I'm not, I'm
Let him hear the truth. We got a question too. We got a question too from YouTube, Steve.
Yeah.
Where did you get investors from? He said, was it Kickstarter? They just wanted to know that. And then Dot also said somebody passed gas, possibly you, Chad. Because you were talking.
He didn't say me. Why would you?
No, because you were talking. I was on mute.
He didn't say me, because that's crazy.
No, I said possible. I was on mute, but it's all
Steve,
good.
just so you know, him and Dot are best friends, so that's like a biased thing. That's his best fucking friend. So for him to throw me under the bus, of course he's gonna do that, right? Give him full context of the conversation.
Where I'm from, if you smelt it, you dealt it. So I don't know. But I mean, before I get into the investor thing, I was just gonna say that what you're talking about is real. But if I flip it on the other side, I don't only look at how other people look at us. I look at how we look at ourselves.
Right.
Right. So how we are quick to like be afraid of each other, skeptic of each other, very judgmental and critical of each other at times. Not everybody, but at times, right? Where in moments like now, it calls for us to come together.